Hello and welcome. I am back for 2025 after a nearly 2.5 week break. I am back with a new video, which today's album I'll be looking at is Nilsson's 1974 album Pussycats. Famously produced by ex-Beatle John Lennon during his infamous Lost Weekend period where he left Yoko Ono, or that, according to her, that apparently she told him to go after their personal assistant, May Ping, who John had a mad crush on, to which he did. So now with Yoko gone out of his life during this period, he did the best thing he could do in life, and that was move to LA to drink and take a fuckload of drugs, where he lived in a house with fellow ex-Beatle Ringo Starr, Who's drummer Keith Moon, which I forgot to mention in my review of Two Sides of the Moon, which I apologize for, and singer-songwriter Harry Nilsson, also known for his famous cursed UK apartment where he'd rented out to fellow musicians of the times when they were in London, which sadly would also become the death sites of both Mama Cass Elliot from the Mamas and Papas and Keith Moon, who I just mentioned. Anyway, sometime in mid to late March 1974, maybe well high on a combination of drugs and alcohol, Nilsson decided to make a new album, with the catch being that John Lennon would produce it for him. So now with these sessions underway, unfortunately during the first day of recording, Harry would rupture one of his vocal cords and in fact kept this a secret from Lennon, thus forcing himself to push through the sessions, which would ultimately cause even more damage to his vocal cords, with some including ex-Monkey Mickey Dolenz, who said that he believes that Nilsson never quite recovered vocally as a result of these sessions and the severe damage to his vocal cords due to rupture. So let's go track list by track list as we look at Pussycats, or the original intended title, Strange Pussies, which was rejected by RCA, of course, due to the name being so vulgar and dirty-minded. The first track is a cover of the old reggae tune Many Rivers to Cross, originally recorded by Jimmy Cliff back in 1969. Here it sounds like Nilsson is doing his best impression of his producer John Lennon's singing voice. And while I enjoyed the arrangement here, I wouldn't say that this is a strong start in my opinion for a pop rock album, but it's a good track regardless of that fact. The next track is an interesting yet confusing choice to put on this album, which is the song Subterranean Homesick Blues, originally written by and recorded by folk musician Bob Dylan in 1965. Here I think it's one of the stronger tracks on this album, so you can hear Harry singing with what I would assume to be John Lennon backing him up on this really killer rocky version of the classic proto-rap mixed with folk rock and blues tune. I think this song was more of a choice personally picked by John Lennon than Harry himself, which makes more sense considering that Lennon was reported to have found the song so captivating when first listening to it at the time of release that he did not know how he would be able to compete with a song like that.
But I must say I was surprised when Bob did go that way, I was very surprised. I'm sure I wasn't the only one. Because all I ever hear, whenever I hear about him, is, and people can quote me to me and make me feel silly too, but all I ever hear when I think of Dylan is, don't follow leaders, watch your parking meters, is it the same man, But whatever, it's the same man, but it isn't the same man, and I don't want to say anything negative or detrimental about a man who is searching or has found.
Right.
Either way, leave well alone. Yeah. There's reasons for all these things. Yeah. And it always lead to Rome.
The third track is a slow-burning pop ballad called Don't Forget Me. No, not the Breakfast Club tune, but a completely different Don't Forget Me that has a very simplistic piano accompaniment with Nilsson's haunting vocals that sings lyrics like,
and when you're older and full of cancer, it doesn't matter now, come on, get happy.
Overall, Don't Forget Me is a fine track, but not my cup of tea really musically, in my opinion at least. All My Life is this upbeat, what some would call a sappy pop song that has a cool arrangement that I really enjoy overall. Like, I could totally see myself going back to this one again and again without ever getting sick of it. The fifth track, called Old Forgotten Soldier, is where the vocal strain is unfortunately and clearly evident here, as Nilsson sounds very hoarse, tired, and strained as he tries to sing the song's lyrics.
And I like to tell my story.
Plus, the intro has a Hitler speech for good measure, so you definitely know it's about World War II. Nilsson, the musician, king of making World War II jokes and references pre the internet memes about it. Track 6 is a cover of the old Mort Schumann and Doc Pomus tune, the songwriting team for both Elvis Presley and the Drifters, whom of which were the original singers of this song. While the OG version lasts for 2.5 minutes, the Harry Nilsson version lasts for nearly 4.5 minutes, which unfortunately kills the mood as it feels that it drags on in some parts for longer than it should. And plus, it's a slow burner which kills the direction of this album too, in that you start with a ballad, then an up-tempo rocker, to another slow burning ballad, to another upbeat tune, and then 3 more slow burners in a row. Macho Mungo / Mount Edgar, co-written by friend and producer John Lennon, is one of the few songs that Lennon wrote for someone else outside of his famous Lennon and McCartney songwriting team, which is kind of rare considering in his solo career, but I know he wrote songs for fellow ex-Beatle Ringo Starr a number of times. But I mean, outside of writing for his fellow Beatles, like, Whatever Gets You Through the Night I think is probably the closest thing he ever co-wrote with someone else. That someone else being Elton John, I think, if I'm correct from memory. He has another cover of the old 60s tune, Loop-de-Loop, which is backed by the masked Albert Kids Quartet, or choir, which kind of helps Nilsson's hoarse vocals here, and actually kind of works well in that it just sounds like a fun jam session that he had with his own kids that might have came into the studio to watch their dad and John Lennon work on this album, which fascinates me in that sense. Black Sail, again, is a slow burner, so it's nothing too special, but it's okay, I guess. The last track is a cover of the song that coined the term rock and roll, being Rock Around the Clock, originally done by Bill Haley in his comments back in 1954. This was the song that, for many future rock and roll acts, including the Beatles themselves, created a chain reaction in that many musicians that came later on said that this song was the blueprint for what their futures could be as musicians. Interestingly enough, however, this version has a total of 3 drummers, the 3 drummers being Ringo Starr, Keith Moon, and Jim Kreischer. While the original version is obviously the better and more iconic version, there is no denying that Nilsson and the guys involved in these sessions are clearly just having a bit of fun and jamming out with nothing seriously demanded of them. Final thoughts. What do I think of Pussycats overall for a first time complete listen? I'm still kind of mixed on it in that I love the pop rock stuff of this record, but the ballads on this album kind of kill the mood a bit for me, no lie. Like, I get people have their taste at the end of the day, but these mid-70s slow ballads weren't really my thing musically and still ain't to this day. But unfortunately, you can tell that there's parts of this album where Harry Nilsson sounds very strained and tired vocally. Plus, most likely what didn't help was Nilsson's vocals at the time, or didn't help his vocals in this case, is that him and John Lennon during this time, for context, were drinking and doing a hell of a lot of drugs, which I just said in the intro, plus staying up all night and sleeping all day as well, on top of the abuse and the addictions both men had, in that while they work well together, perhaps they were also a bad combo together at the same time, in the sense of enabling one another's addictions and personal problems they both had, whether it was John with his depression due to his separation from Yoko / his bad childhood, and Nilsson, who was hanging out with people like Keith Moon that had very addictive personalities and issues with self-indulgence. Finally, I wanted to say thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, goodbye and thanks again. If you want me to cover any other albums in the future, please put the request in the comments down below and I'll tell you whether or not I can do them or not. Anyways, thanks again for watching. Until next time, goodbye.